Welcome back to my channel. My name is Mimi, and in today's video I'm going to be walking you through step by step how you can create a report with Power BI. Power BI is a big thing right now in the world of data. In data analytics, people use Power BI a lot. Most companies are using Power BI in order to tell a story with their data. So in today's video I'm going to be walking you through step by step on how you can create a report even without any prior knowledge of Power BI. Stay tuned. Alright, let's get started. So for today we're going to be recreating this report together. So this is a report in Power BI about FIFA 23 player research, a data that I found online. I'm going to be putting a link to in the description box where you can get the same data. I'm also going to be putting a link to all these images here that I've used in this report. That way you can download it on your computer and you can follow along. So this data, like I said earlier, was data that I found online, and it's all about FIFA 23 player research data that was put together by a team. So we're going to be working with that today. So let's go through this report first before we start creating again from the scratch. And don't worry if you don't know anything about Power BI, we're going to go from the scratch and we're going to create this together. So if you want to add to the description box so that you can download all the things that you've been needing before you get started, you can pause the video to do that. So this has slices up here that you can use to filter to a particular player. For example, if I was interested in Messi, I'm going to type that here and I can click this, and this will filter the report to just Messi. I can see that this is his net worth, this is his wage, I can see all this penalty, I can see his average age right here, he's 35. If I was interested in seeing more information about Messi, all I have to do is to right click here. I right clicked and then I'll go to where it says drill through and I'll go to player details. When I click that, this is going to take me to another page, and this page you can see here that it gave me a bigger image of Lionel Messi. I can see that he's from Argentina, his wage and other, like last FIFA he was the best player. When I'm done, I can go back here, I'll hold control on my computer and I'll tap click. I'm back here to this page. I can reset this filter and clear the selection here by clicking this button, and everything is back here. We can see that this shows like the top 3 most played players. Right now we don't have any filter, so if I was to look for players in, let's say, the United States, for example, this will show me that these 3 people are the 3 most paid player in the United States. If I clear the filter, and if we scroll down here to the bottom right, we can put our cursor on any of this. It will show us the information for that country. For example, Germany, this shows us that we have 1,188 players with their average age being 25. If I was to go to South America, which is Brazil, for example, they have 672 players and their average age is 27. So let's start with this. Before we get started, I'm going to show you here that it's a rule of thumb to have a data as of here. That way your user can know that this data that you're looking at is as of this date. And pay attention if I refresh this data here, if I click refresh, pay attention that the time here would change. If I click refresh, see that the time has changed to 7:31. This is the current local time where I'm at right now. So anytime you refresh your report, this data here should change to reflect the current time. So I'm going to open a new Power BI report here so that we can get started. First thing that we want to do is to bring in the logo that we used in that report. So to bring in the logo, you need to go to the Insert tab at the top here, and you go to image. So I'll click image, and then this will open up the file explorer on my computer. You can navigate to wherever you have that logo downloaded on your machine. Again, you can check out the link to the logo in the description box. So I'm going to be bringing in this logo. I'm going to click it and say open. So I'm going to reshape this right here and put it here. Okay, so the next thing now we need to do is to bring in that image that we see in the background. So I'm going to go to the background right here. I'll go to the paintbrush. If you don't see it, then make sure you have this open. If yours is like this, then you need to open this and click on this brush right here, and you need to go to Canva background right here. I'm going to go to the image. I'm going to bring this image and say open. Right now we don't see it because the transparency is on to 100%, so we're going to remove the transparency. So now we should see it, and it's still a little bit small, so I'm going to make this say fit. So fit. So now we see it's fit right here. The next thing is for us to use that purple color for our wallpaper. So you head to wallpaper and you want to change this color to purple. So the S code I'm going to put in the description, but I already have the color here as purple. The S code is 573B92. I'm going to put it in the description box. So I'm going to click purple. So now we can see that I have purple as my wallpaper right here, all the way. Okay, so the next thing for us is to have that text here that says FIFA research, FIFA 23 player research. So how do we do that? You need to head back to where it says insert, go to text box. I'm going to click text box, and then I'm going to type in here FIFA 23 player research. FIFA 23 player research. I'm going to highlight it. I want to make it bigger. Right now it's a little bit small, so let's make it 40. That way it's bigger. Okay, you can resize this. Okay, so now let's make it Segure bold. That way it's bolder, bold. So if you click out of it, we're getting there. We want it to be white just to make it look good. So we want the text to be white. So I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to go to the color here and make it white. Okay, if I click out, we don't see it. That's because of this background. So let's click on this and go to properties. Let's go to effect and let's go to the background. We don't want any background, so I'm going to turn off the background. So when you turn off the background, then you can see it more. So I'm going to resize this just so we can stay here. And then one rule of thumb is to have it at the center. So right now, as you can see here, it's on the left. So I'm going to highlight this and say, okay, go to the center. Say shift. And then last thing we want to do with this is to click it and go here where it says format. We want it to be in the center. So you go to align and you say center. You see, it's going to move it. Now we have this text right here. Okay, so next thing for us is to bring in that so if I refresh this now, there's nothing to refresh because we don't have any data. And you remember Power BI is all about data. We're telling a story with that data. Okay, so the next thing now we want to do is to bring in the data that we'll be working with. So let's bring in the data that we'll be working with. So to bring in data, you want to go to get data. For us, we're going to be working with a CSV file. The CSV file link is in the description box. So I'm going to go here to where it says text/CSV. I'll click it, and then it's going to open up my file browser. So you need to navigate to where you store that data. For me, it's in my downloads folder. So I'm going to click it and click open and give it a couple seconds. Okay, so now Power BI will show you the name of the file that you're using at the top left here. It's going to show you. It's going to show you all the columns that you have in your file. So you can see we have all those columns here. It's also going to show you some of the data. As you can see here, it says that it's based on the first 200 rows. So this is not all the data, it's just showing you some. And now we just need to bring this data into Power BI. So you have two options here. One option is load, another one is transform data. I usually do transform data. Why? Because I want to transform my data. If you do load, then Power BI is going to transform your data for you. And sometimes it gets the right transformation. Sometimes it uses the wrong transformation. So for you to double check, you want to click this transform data. So I'm going to click it. And then this will open up Power Query. If you look to the top left here, it says Power Query. This is the name of my file, and then it says this is the Power Query editor. And now it's going to show you all the columns that you have in your file, all of them. Okay, let's come here to the right side. You can see here that Power BI did some of those steps for you. We didn't do any of this, it just did it for you automatically. What is the first one? The first one is it went to the source. So if you double click this will open up where Power BI is getting the file from. As you can see, it's going to my downloads folder and it's grabbing this file. Next thing it did was to promote headers. What is promote headers? If you look here, for example, column 16, right now we don't have the column name here. The column name is like, and then the next thing it did was to do a change type. Change type is when Power BI does the conversion for you by going from one data type to another. For example, Power BI can convert a text to a number or vice versa. So usually I like to delete this change type because I want to make sure that it's doing the right data transformation for me. So I'm going to close this and I'll do it myself. So we know this is the known as, so it's fine that it's a text. How did I know this is a text? If you click on the column and look up here, it says it's a text. Another way to know is when you see ABC in Power BI, that means it's a text. When you see 1 to 3, which we are going to see next, that means O number. So right now this is fine as a text. This is also fine as a text. Right now it's making my overall as a text. So I'm going to make this a whole number. Okay. And then the latest award is fine. It's a text. This value in euro. And right now it's saying it's a text. I don't want it to be a text. I want it to be a fixed decimal number. So I'm going to click it. So now we can see that this look more like money. So positions played is fine, nationality is fine, the image link, they're fine. The age, we're going to change this to a whole number. The height, we can change to a whole number. Similarly, the weight. Next, the wage in euro, we need to change that to like money. And the jersey number, we cannot change this to a number, a whole number, because we have some of them with a dash. If you wanted to change this to a number, a whole number, you need to get rid of this dash first. If you want, you can come here and right click and go to replace values. What is replace values? Replace value is going to ask you, what do you want me to look for? In our case, we wanted to look for dash. We'll say look for dash and don't replace it with anything. I just want to get rid of dash. When I click OK, pay attention that those dashes will disappear. I'll click OK. Now the dashes are gone, and now I can make this a whole number. Okay. Paste total, we can make this a whole number. Shouldn't total, or this can be whole number. Passing total as well, whole number. Penalty still can be a whole number. Okay, so we've gone through all this to make sure that we're using the right data type. And now we're going to rename this file. Remember, anytime you bring data into Power BI, make sure to give it a descriptive name. So I'm going to say FIFA 23 player data. Now I'm ready to load this into Power BI. To load this, we're going to come here where it says close and apply, and I'm going to click close and apply. And just give it a couple seconds. Okay, now that our file is loaded, we are ready to go. If you look here, this is our data. To see the actual data, you come here to the left where it says data view. When I click this, I'm going to see all the data that we loaded here. And if you look all the way to the bottom left, you can see that it tells you that you loaded 17,529 rows. This is to tell us that we have this much data in our file. Okay, so if you go to the model view, you can see we have the data here. We just have one. So let's go back to the report view. If you click here, you can go back to the report view. Now we can start building our visuals. Let's first show the date that says when the report was last refreshed, like I was showing us earlier. To do that, you're going to go here to your data and right click, go to new measure. Measure is a way we do calculation in Power BI. So if you say new measure, it's going to ask you here in the formula section, what is the name of our measure? The name of our measure is data as of equals. Remember, we want to write a formula. We need to give it an equal sign. Equals what? Equals, let's say, now. I'm going to show us the difference. So let's say now. Now means what is the day and the time right now. If I click enter, now this is the measure that we just wrote. So how do we see it? We need to click on this visual here that says card 1, 2, 3. Click it. When you click it, it's going to come here on the report pane, report view right here. And then you can drag it here. Now this should show you, this is the value. As of right now, the time is 7:45:07. Now, we want to format this so that we can put it at the top here. Okay, so let's first take the background off. We don't want it to have a background, just like this one. So we're going to go here. We're going to go to the general effect and let's turn off the background. Next, let's make the text to be white. So we go here to visual, we go to callout value, and then we want it to be white. So we make this white. Okay. Similarly, we want to reduce the font. It's a little bit too big. Okay, let's make it 28. Next, let's make this, we want to turn off where it says data as of. Let's go here to callout label. If I turn this off, then we just see a date. What does this date mean? Nobody knows. So how do we make it to show that data as of this date? What we need to do is to go back to our measure. Look for your measure here. You can search for it by typing in the name of the measure is data as of. When you can find it here. Now we need to edit this measure to show data as of and then the date. So we need to come here to the front before the now. We want it to say data as of. So you need to put it in a quote and you type in data as of, put a space, put another quote, and then we need to tell Power BI that we want you to join this together. So I'm going to add an and sign here and click enter. So now we can see that this now shows data as of. So anyone that is looking at our report can say, oh, this report is as of this day right here. So let's shrink this a little bit. Okay, so we can shrink this. Let's reduce the font a little bit more. Okay, let's make it 15. So that way we have more room. So I'm going to shrink this and we're going to put it all the way to the top. That way anybody that loads this report, they can see that the data is as of this date. So let's see what the time is right now. So when we first wrote the measure, it was 7:47. Let me click refresh and we'll see that the time will change. See, now it's 7:48:04. If I click it again, it's going to change. So now that we're done with the top, Now let's go to create those filters that we were seeing before. So to create a filter in Power BI, you're going to use the slicer visual here that says slicer. If I click on it, it's going to come here. Now the first slicer that we saw is the player, so the name of the player. So I'm going to come here to my data. I'm going to look for the player, so the full name. So I'm going to drag the full name here so we can see all the full name. One other thing to add to this is to give the user ability to search. So to do that, you're going to go here to more option and click on the search. That way they can just search and say I was interested in Messi. I can search for Messi instead of trying to scroll down. So I'm going to clear this. Okay, so the next thing we don't want it to show as a list as we're currently seeing. We want it to show as a drop down. So to do that, you'll need to go here to make sure you have the visual selected like this, and go to the paintbrush, and you want to go to the slicer settings. Make sure you choose drop down. So when I click drop down, we can now see that this is a drop down and they can still search for it. So what's next? So the next thing for us to do for the slicer is to give it a nice header. So right now the slicer header says full name. We want it to say player. So I'm going to change the name here where it says text. I'm going to change it to player. And then I'm going to change the font. The font right now is thin 12. I'm going to make it 16. So I'm going to increase it to 16. And then the font color. Right now it's a black. I'm going to use a gold. So the gold that I'll be using, the X value is D9, B300, B9 300. And then I'm going to make the background to be purple. So I want the background of the text here to say purple. So I'm going to use our purple. Okay, and then the value, I'm going to make the value background to be white. And then I'm also going to go to general. I want to turn off this background here. I don't want it to have a background, so I'll go to effect and I'll turn off this background. So we can see here now that we have this filter or slicer, and now we can see that we can still search for, if I was interested in Mbappe, I can search for it right here. Okay, so we have the slicer. One tip is to have your slicer. Since we've done all the customization that we need to do for this, all we just have to do is to make copies of this and just change the name. So now we need a slicer that would be for the nationality. So I'm going to click on this. I'll do Ctrl C and I'll click out and do Ctrl V. So now I have a copy of this. The reason why we're doing copy and pasting is because we don't want to go and grab another slicer here and go through the same customization again. Now what we have to do is to make sure that we change this. Instead of the full name, we want it to be the nationality. So I'm going to go here and search for nationality. I'm going to expand this, that way I can see all the name. So nationality is right here. I'm going to delete this and I'm going to drag this here. So now we can see that this has nationality. Remember to change the name of the header, that way your user is not confused. You go to the paintbrush right here, you go to slicer header, and now we want to change the name. So this is actually national. Let's see right here. Another slicer that we need is the club. So we're doing the same thing. We're going to click on one, Ctrl C, we'll do Control V. Now for this one, we need to have the club name. So let's go here and look for the club. So let's search club. So let's delete this nationality and bring in the club name. So now we have the club name, but remember that we have to change the text of the header. So let's go to the paintbrush, slicer header, and let's change this to club. So now we have the club. Okay, we need to have a final one that says the national team. So let's make another copy and go here. For this one, let's change this to national team. And then let's go back here and let's pull in the national team name. So let's delete this and put in the national team name. Now we can see that we see the national team name. So all we have to do now is just to put them where we want them to go. So I'm going to click this, put this here. I'm going to put the club. I'm going to reduce this so that I can see everything. So let's put the club here and let's put the national team here. Okay, we can make them come here. Okay, one cool thing that you can do with visuals in Power BI, I'm going to close this, is that you can group them so that if you need to move all of them to the top, you don't have to move them one by one. So I'm going to group all this visual. I'm just going to hold on my computer here. It's going to select all of them. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to group and click group. So now if I need to move all of them, I just click one time and I can move them anywhere I want. Now remember, we have to center it that way. So you go to your format here, you go to your align and you say align center. Now everything is centered. Okay, so the next visual that we need to do is the card. So we need to bring in all those cards here. So for the cards, for the first one, so we need to bring in the next visual that we need to bring in are the cards. So all this right here, they are called cards in Power BI. So the first one, we need players, net worth, wage, penalties, and the average age. So let's start with the players. Players is just the count of players that we have in our report. Remember that when we went to this data tab here, data view, and if you look at the bottom left, you see that we have 17,529. So that means we have that many players in our data. So let's go back here to the report view, and now let's create a measure that will tell us how many players we have. So to create a measure, remember, you just need to go to your data and right click and go to new measure. Now it's going to ask you for the name. So what is the name of this? We want to do the count of players equals. So what do we want to do? We want to count. So you start typing count. See count here, count. What do you want to count? We want to count the players, the name. So we can look for the full name here, or you can type in full name. See, and you can click it. Make sure to close the parentheses because we started off with the parentheses here. We want to close it and say close, and now you can hit enter on your machine. Okay, so I'm going to clear this filter here, and now we can see our measure here, count of players, but we don't see the value. So let's click on card and let's click count of players. So right now it's saying 18K, but we know that the count of player is 17,000 plus. So how do we make this show the exact number? We need to go here with the brush and go to the call out value, and you want that to say none instead of display unit. Right now it's set auto, so let's say none. So now we can see that 17,529. Okay, the value is correct, but the value is not formatted. we want it to say 17,000, 529. So how do we change that? You need to click on your measure and come here to the top left. You see this comma? We need to click it, and that should make this say 17,000, 529. Okay, so next thing for us is we don't want the count of players here. We want to have a title that says players, and we don't want to have this here. So first, let's turn off this. That's the call out label. We want to turn it off, and we want to go to general, and we want to turn on the title, and we want to give it a title and say players. So now we want the player to be gold. So how do we make it gold? We go to this. Okay, so we want now that it has a title, we want the title to be a little bit bigger. So we're going to make this 20, and we want the title to be at the center. So let's click the center. Also, we want the 17,000 value to be in gold color. So the same gold that we've been working with. So we go back to visual. We'll go back to call out value. And we want this color to be gold. This gold. Okay. So now that we have this, we're going to make this shrink a little. You can change the width and height of this, and to check the width and height, you make sure you have it selected. Go to general, go to properties. Right now the height is 105. It's probably too tall. We want the height to be around 86. So I'm going to make this 86. Also, we want the width to be 242. That way we have room for other cards. So 242. Okay. Maybe we can make it bigger like that. Okay, so now we have this. So we also need cards for the wage, like we see here. We need card for the wage, the net worth. So next, let's go to the net worth. So the next thing we need to do is now we need to go to measure. We need to write a measure that will give us the sum of the wages. So right click and go to new measure. Okay, and then we say this is the sum of wages. So sum of wages equals, what are we doing? We want to sum. So you start out by typing sum. You can click it. Sum what? What do you want to sum? Well, in our case, we want to sum the wages. So we start typing wages. Wage in euro. Click it, close your parentheses, and hit enter. Okay, so now let's look for our measure. You can scroll right here, see sum of wages. Make sure you click here to bring in a new card, and then you can drag in the sum of wages here. So we can see now that this is saying $446.24 million. But we know that the data we're working with is in euro. So how do we solve this? We need to come here to the measure, and we need to come here and say, no, mine is euro. So you click euro. So now this is saying now 446.24 million in euro. So now we can see here. Remember, we don't want to go and start doing another customization to this. So we can make a copy of this card, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and we just do the same thing. We'll drag in the sum of wages. Now we can see that this is a very big number. We want it to say in millions, like this one. So what you do is to come here, your paintbrush, go to your call out value. Now instead of saying none, you actually want to click millions. Depending on how big your data is, if you were working with trillion, you want to go with trillion. So with this one, we can go with million. Okay, remember to change the title. Now this is wages. So for us to do that, we'll go to general, we go to title, and we change this. Instead of saying players, this will say wages. Wages. Okay, so now that we have this, we can probably shrink this a little bit. And now we can get rid of this one since we don't need it. Delete. Just hit delete on your computer. And now we have this that has the wages. Now the next thing for us to do, now that we have the players, we have the wages, we need to do the net worth. So how do we know the net worth of our players? We need to write a measure that will sum the value of our players. So let's right click here, write another measure. We'll give it a name. So this will be sum of value, which will give us the net worth. So this will be sum value. Close the parentheses, hit enter. Okay, we're going to make a copy of this as well. Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and we're going to look for the sum of value right here. So just drag it here. So now we see now that they still say wages. So let's change this. The title, we just need this to say net worth. So go to general, title, and this will be net worth. Okay. Can put this here. Okay, and then the next thing now that we need to do is to do the sum of the penalties. So we also need another measure, so I'm going to make a copy of this, paste it, and then let's write another measure that will sum the penalties for us. So right click and go to new measure, give it a name. So this will be sum of penalties equals, what do we want? We want to sum. We want to sum what? Penalty. And close the parentheses, hit enter. And we can find the measure here. So I'm going to drag it in this so that we can see. Right now it's saying 1 million. That's a lot. So we want this to actually to show the actual value, like this players. So let's go back to the brush and let's say colored value. We don't want you to show anything, just be none. We want to see the actual number. So now we want it to format the same way as this with a comma. So click on the measure and click on this comma here, and that will make it formatted. Now we have a comma. So remember that we need to change the title. So we go to general, we hit title, and now we change this. Instead of net worth, this is actually penalties. Okay, we'll put this here. Okay, let's make room for all these ones here. Penalties. Might probably just shrink this a little bit. Okay, now the last card that we need is the average age. So let's make another copy of this. This is the last card. And we'll go back to here. We'll right click. Let's make the last measure for now. New measure. And this is the average age equals, what do we want to do from average what? Average of the age. So start typing age. So right here, click it, close the parentheses, hit enter. So now we have the average age. I'm going to drag it into this card that I duplicated. Right now it's telling me the average age is 25.30. Well, I don't want the 30. I want just 25. So you can make sure you click the measure and you come here. Right now it's set to auto. You don't want it to have any decimal. So you either change this to a whole number, or you can change this here and say, I don't want it to be auto. I want it to be 0, and hit enter. Right now it's 25. So, and remember to change the title. So the title right now, remember to change the title. So we'll go to general, we'll go to title. Right now this should say average age. And because this is big, we can shrink it here. Okay, I'm going to shrink some of this. That way we have room for this last card. You can make room. You can arrange it. Penalties, we can probably shrink a little more. That way we have space for this average age. Okay, let's move this a little bit. Maybe a little more. Then the next thing we can do is to group them like we did for the slices. So we're going to do the same thing. Everything is selected besides this one, so I'm going to hold control on my computer and I'm going to hit this. I clicked it. Now that everything is selected, we're going to right click. Remember, we want to group them. So now that everything is grouped, we can center it. So just click on it one time and go here to format, go to align and center, align center. You can see now that it's in the center. So now that we've created all this top section, the next thing that we need to create is this this table right here. So for the table, we're going to be showing the photo, their name, their age, and all other information. So let's bring out a table. So a table visual in Power BI is this one right here that says table. So I'm going to make sure nothing is selected here. I'll say table. Right now it's small. You can bring it down and you can make it bigger. Okay, so let's first bring in all the columns that we'll be needing before we do any formatting. So we're going to be needing their photo. So we're going to be needing their image. So you can come here and search image. Right now, we don't want the full image. Remember, the full image is on the detail page. We want the image link. That one will show that the headshots. Right now, we can see that these are just showing the links to the images. It's not actually showing the photo. So what you need to do is, because this image link right now, if you come here, you can see that the data category is uncategorized. If you use the drop down, you can see that we have different ones. We have web URL, we have image URL. For Power BI to be able to show this as an image, you have to click on this image URL. When I click it, now it knows that these are actually images. Now you can see that it's showing images. We don't want this to say image link, so we're going to rename this. Double click here, double click this and say photo. So now it says photo and we can see all the images of the players. So now let's bring in their name. So let's search for their full name. Their full name, you can click the checkbox. Now it's here, we can see their full name. Let's shrink this a little bit. Let's bring their nationality. Nationality, that would tell us where they're from. So we can see this person is from Italy. Okay, now let's bring in their age. That would tell us how old they are. So age, let's bring it in here. We can see now it's showing us sum of age. We don't want this to say sum of age, and we don't get any value from summing people's ages. So we don't get any value from summing the age. So how do we tell Power BI not to sum? You need to click on this down arrow here close to the field here and say don't summarize. So when I say don't summarize, we can see now that the summarization is gone. So that's the age. We need to know their value. The value in euro, I'm going to drag it here. Now we can see one thing to pay attention is that we have the same value here, the value in euro. So now it says sum of value. We can rename this. We can rename this here and say let's say net worth. We know that that means their net worth. Net worth. So this is the net worth. Right now it's showing dollars. So how do we fix this? So it's either you use, remember we already changed the for. So now that we have the age, let's look for the wages. So I'm going to look for wages. So here, wages. drag it here. So now we can see in euro. So we want this to actually say wages, so we can rename, double click here and change this to wages. So now it says wages. We can shrink it a little bit. Okay, next we want the net worth. So let's look for the net worth, which we called, now we want the value. So we know that this value is the net worth, so I'm going to drag it here. Okay, so now it's showing in dollars. Let's pay attention that we didn't remember to change this. This is still showing in dollars as well. So now that we have that measure, let's click it and let's come here where it says dollar. Use the drop down and use euro so that this can change to euro. So they are now in euro. We know that value is the net worth. So double click this to change to net worth. Okay, so now we can see the net worth. So next we have all the net worth. So let's bring in the club name. So club name, we'll look for club name here. So now let's look for their club name. So club name, make sure you have the table selected and you can drag in the club name. So instead of saying club name, we're just gonna say club. And let's shrink this a little bit. Okay, and now we bring in the national team name. You can bring in as many columns as you want here. Here I'm going to just rename this to national team instead of the national team name. And then we're going to like this a little bit. So let's bring in their penalties. So we can search for penalties. We already have that. We're going to put it here. Okay, so we don't want this to say sum of penalties. We're just going to say penalties. So we can rename this. Okay, so now that we have all the columns, we can add in as many columns as you want. Let's shrink this table a little bit. We can probably have some more room here if we shrink the full name so that we have room for the last two visuals. Okay, now let's shrink the height of the table just a little bit. Okay, now we can make the customization to the table. Let's start with the column headers. So the column headers are this ones right here. Make sure you have the table selected and go to your brush and you want to go to column headers. First, let's turn off the background. So now you want to go to column headers. First, let's make the background to be gold. Right now the background color is white. We want it to be gold, the dark gold. So this dark gold. Okay, and now we want the text to be white. So the text color, let's make that white. And we also want it to be bold. So bold. Okay, so we see here that we might need to make the table bigger a little bit. Okay, so let's make the title background light gold. So now let's make the borders of this to be the light gold. So make sure you have the visual selected, and then you can go here and let's go to find the borders. So effect, visual border, let's turn that on and let's give it a color. We're going to be using the light code now.
Next, let's put a background for this table instead of the white. So let's go to the paintbrush and let's go to general, and here we can find the effect. Right now the background color is white. Let's make it to be the light gold. So let's click that. Now we can see that we have that light gold background for the table. So the table looks good. Right now we can just increase the column headers a little bit to make them bigger. So to do that, let's go back to the visual. Let's go to column headers, and right now they are 10. We can make them a little bit bigger. So this nationality, we might need to adjust this a bit. And now let's make the table a little bit bigger. Okay, so we're ready to go to the last two visual for this page. The next visual that we need to do is for the top 3 most paid players, and for that we're going to be using this bar graph right here. Make sure that you don't have anything selected, so I'm going to click on the bar chart and I'm going to bring it here. We can resize it. Okay, so for the bar graph, we're going to be showing the name of the players will be on the y-axis. So let's search for the name. So I'll type in the name. Let's put that on the y-axis, and then we're going to be putting the wages. So let's search for the wages. The sum of the wages is going to go on the x-axis. So let's track that and put that on the x-axis. Now we can see that we see all the player. If I keep scrolling, you will see all the players and their wages. Right now we don't see the actual amount, so let's turn on the data label. Right now if you just put your cursor, you will see here. So let's make this say, instead of sum of wages, let's make it say wages. Just double click and change it to wages, and then let's make it show the actual value. So let's go to the paintbrush, go to the data label. Right now it's turned off, so let's turn that on. So now we can see that this person makes this much. So now it's still showing in billion. We don't want it to show in billion because now it's just at the player level, like each player. So let's go to the data label here still, and right now we go to values. It's showing display units to be auto. Let's make that to show in millions, because we know some players get millions. So right now it's showing in millions, so we can see Mbappe makes this many millions. If you put your cursor here, you will see that it makes 48 million. So that's it for the value. So next thing that we can do is let's add a title. We want the title to say that top 3 most paid players. So the next thing that we can do is, right now the data label is not really clear. We can increase the font, so I'm going to increase that here, and okay, and then we can make the value to be bold. So let's click bold. Now we can see that it's bigger, and let's make the color to be black, that way it can stand out. So now it's easier to see it. Now it's bigger. Since we said that this is going to be the top 3 most paid players, why are we seeing everybody? This is not top 3 yet. How are we going to do this? So we need to put a filter on this visual. To do that, you go here where it says filter. Make sure that you have this selected, and the next thing we can do here is to go where it says full name. Click it, and now it's saying basic filtering. We want this to say top N. So go to top N, and now what is our N? So you have option of seeing the top most paid players or the least most paid players. For us, we want the top. So top what? We want the top 3. So now POWERBI is asking you, what do you want me to look at to determine this? Okay, we want you to look at the wages. So we're going to drag in this value here, and we're going to click apply filter. So now if we go here, we see now that if I scroll, we only see 3 people. If you want, you can say, oh, I want to see the top 5. You just need to change this value, hit apply. Now you're going to see 5 people. So I'm going to change this back to 3 and hit apply. So the next thing is to make this title nicer, and we format this. So I'm going to turn off this text here. I don't want it to show full name. I already know that this is the full name. So let's go to the visual, and for my y-axis, I'm going to go here where it says title. I'm going to turn it off. So now we can see that we don't have that anymore. We just see the names. Okay, and then the next thing is I'm going to change the color of this bar. I want it to have the color of the sky. So let's go here. We're going to look for where it says the bars right here, and we're going to change the color to the color of the sky. Something the color of the sky, maybe a little less. That we're going to change it to the color of the sky. Okay, so let's turn off this grid line here. See this grid line here? We don't want it to show. So let's go to grid line and let's turn this off. So now we just see we don't have any grid line. Okay, the next thing here is we can see that this name is not really showing. So let's make sure that we give more room to the name, and to do that we can go to the y-axis, and we just need to increase the area. So you can increase this so that you can have more space for the name. So I think we're good here. Everybody knows this is C Ronaldo, so that's fine. And lastly, let's turn off this here. We don't really need this label here on the x-axis. So let's go to x-axis and let's say it off. Now we have all this. We also need to turn off the wage here. We're going to have the title to say that it's the wages. So let's go to x-axis, and this is the title that we need to turn off. Now let's give this a title. Let's say the top 3 most paid players. So go to general, go to title. Instead of this, let's change it to top 3 most paid players. Okay, let's let the title go in the center. So I'm going to say center, and let's make the title, let's give the title a background. Let's give it the light gold background. Let's make the font of the text to be white instead of black. I'm going to change it to white. Also, let's make the text here to be bold. Remember, we have bold for all this, so I'm going to use bold. Let's increase the font a little bit. Okay, so this visual looks good. So let's create the last visual for this page. The last visual is going to be the graph. So we can see that this is joining here. We can reduce this a little bit. That way we have some space. If you want, you can reduce this a little bit so you have some space here. So let's bring in our graph. So let's bring in our graph. So make sure you don't have anything selected and just click on map. Going to bring it here. Going to resize it to make it bigger. Okay, I'm probably going to reduce I'm going to reduce this here so that we can have the map to be bigger. Okay, so for the map, we're going to be adding the nationality because we can tell the country that they're from. So let's look for nationality here. I'm going to be adding that to the location. Okay, now we can see that it's putting it on the graph. Next, I'm going to be adding the players. Remember, we have this measure that tells us how many players we have. So let's look for that measure, count of players. So for that, I'm going to be putting that in the bubble size. Bubble size, now we're going to see that some are now bigger. This means that this has a bigger count of players more than this. And now we're going to be putting the average. Remember, we need to know what is the average of ages of the players. What is the average age of the players for a country? So let's look for the average age here. And for this, we're going to be putting it in the tooltip. I'm going to drag it here. Now, if you go back and put your cursor, you will see that it's going to tell you France. They have this many players. We can rename this instead of count of players. We can just say players. And if we go back, we see France. We have players 922. The average age is 25. Let's go to an Asian country. China, 432. 27 is the average age. Let's go to South America. Paraguay, players are 171 and the average age is 27. So all we have to do now is to give it a nice title. So let's go here to the paintbrush. Let's go to general. Let's go to title. Let's make this say countries. Let's make this say players by country, players by country, and average age. Okay, players by country and average age. Let's make the title to be in the center. Let's make the title background to be gold, just like this, the light gold. Now let's make the text to be white. Let's make the text bigger by making it bolder. Now it looks similar as this one. Okay, we need to give this a border. So let's go here to the effect. Let's go to visual border. Let's turn that on. Let's make the color to be the light gold. Okay. Let's do the same thing for the sky to give it the border. Let's go to general. Let's go to effects. Visual border. We want to turn that on and let's give it this code. Okay. So we can see that color. So the next thing, looks like we're done with this page. So let's just quickly test some of this that we've done. Let's test the players. So far, let's say Messi. You can see Messi. We see everything about Messi and stuff. Let's clear the filter. Okay, so this looks good. Remember to save your work. Let's test this to make sure that it still works. Let's refresh. Make sure that the time changed. Yep, the time changed. We're good. So the next thing now we need to do is to make the drill through page. But before that, let's give this page a name. Let's double click this and make it summary. So that's the name of this page, summary. So the next thing that we need to do is to create this page here that will show us a bigger image of the player and show us more information about that player that was selected. So we're going to be needing the full image instead of the headshot that we use here. So let's create that page first. So I'm going to click this plus here. I'm going to rename, double click it and say player details. So first let's make this background to be purple as well. So let's go to the paintbrush. Let's go to wallpaper and make this color purple. So now we have purple. So let's go back to the data. Let me show us something real quick. If you go here, this is the full image. Let's see, we don't have all the players, not all the player has the full image. We only have 3. So why don't we write a formula here that will check if there's a full image? We want that. If there's no full image, then we want to use this headshot image. So how do we do that? Besides writing the measure in Power BI, we can also create a calculated column. A calculated column, they usually ask on an interview, what is the difference? And the difference is that the calculated column would do it a row by row context, why a measure is going to do it a filter context. And the reason why the column would do it row by row is if we create a new column, in our case now, it's going to go through it row by row, why a measure would do it based on the filter context that you supply. Okay, so we're going to right click anywhere here, and we're going to say a new column. So let's give our column a name. What is the name of our new column? It's going to be full image new and equals. So what do we want? We want to use an if statement. If, why are we using an if statement? Because we want to check a condition. If the full image, if it is empty, that means we don't have that value, then we want it to use the headshot. The headshot is the image link. If it's not blank, if it's not empty, if we have it, then we want it to use that value. Let's go through the formula again. So the formula is saying that Power BI, I want you to check if the full image is empty. If it's empty, that means that I don't have that value. Then I just want to use the headshot, meaning the image link. If it's not empty, that means I have a value. Then I just want to use the link that you have in there. Then I'm going to click commit. And now we see that we have all this. Let's do some testing to make sure that the formula is working correctly. We know that we have the full image for some of our players. So like for example, if I was to sort this, we see that we have this. So let's look at what the formula that we wrote now, what does it give us? So now we can see that this is the full image of those players. Okay, so let's go back here now. So the first thing that we want here is to put the image of the player. So to get the image, let's go back here and look for the simple image. I'm going to drag it here. If you don't have the simple image, you might need to grab it from the marketplace by clicking on those 3 dots and go to get more visuals. Then you have to sign in and just download it. Look for simple image. So I'm going to make this bigger. I'll put it here. Then I'm going to come here. Remember, we already created a new column, full image new. I'm going to drag it here to the URL. See, now it's showing here. So I'm going to make it stretch a little bit. Maybe reduce the width. I can make this go here. We need to play with the image settings. The scaling is now normal. Let's say fit. If we say fit, then now we have the old image. Now let's shrink this a little bit. Okay, so if we want, we can add borders, we can add more things here. Another thing that we can do is to add a text here that will show us the name of the player. So to do that, I'm going to bring in a card. Let's bring in a card and let's drag in the full name here. So if you see here, it's showing the first full name. That's fine. This is not Messi's name. The reason why we're getting the first full name is because we have a lot of players here. When we drew through, it's going to pass in the parameter of the person that we clicked to drew through on, and it's going to show the appropriate value, and we're going to test it out. So for now, this is fine. So we're going to make this shrink. Let's turn this off. Let's just do some customization. Let's go here and turn off the background. We don't want the background. Effects off. Then we want the visual. We don't want the label. Label right now is showing the first full name. Let's turn that off. Let's make the callout value, instead of color black, let's make it color white. And let's reduce the font a little bit. Okay, we can make it 35. I'm going to make this bigger like that. We're going to shrink this a little bit. We can put it here. That way when somebody comes to this page, they know what they're looking at. And then the next thing now is let's add a title here that shows us what we're looking at. So let's go to here, insert. Let's say text box. And now let's put in player details. Player details. Okay, let's put in player details. I'm going to highlight this so that we can make it bolder. Let's make it bold. Oh, let me highlight this and click bold, and we want to make it bigger. So let's say 20. Actually, let's make it more bigger. Let's say 28. Okay, and then right now it's black. We want it to be white. So now it's white. We don't see it because the background is still there. Let's turn off the background, go to effect. We don't want to have a background. Now we see it. So we can bring it here. Let's actually use Sequoia bold here. That way it's bold. Okay. And let's make sure we put it in the center. Go to format, align, center. Okay, this doesn't format, align center. Okay, align center, and make sure to highlight this and say center. Okay, so now we see that it's in the center. And then the next thing we want to do is let's make this, let's shrink this a little bit. Okay, so we're ready to start putting all the cards here that will show us the different information about a player. Let's start with a simple card here. So here, we're going to use this for the nationality. So let me search for nationality. Afghanistan, and again we know Messi is not from Afghanistan. This is not his name. The reason why this is showing up and we're going to test this is because this is going to be a drill through page, meaning nobody is going to come to this page unless they come through this page, and Power BI is going to set the filter from here to know who to show here. Okay, let's actually set up the drill through page. That way you see what I'm talking about. So to do the drill through, you see here where it says add drill through field. What this means is, what do you want me to look for on this visual or any visual that will make me take the user to this new page? Okay, for us, we wanted to look for like the full name, for example. So if I look for full name, we can drag it here and put it here. Now you see that Power BI added this back button for us automatically. So before we do any more formatting, let's make sure that this actually works. So let's go back here to the summary page and let's look for Messi, or let's look for Mbappe. So let's go to player and let's look for Mbappe. If you click it, okay, now we can see his headshot. Okay, let's drill through. Right click. Now we see the drill through option. We see the page name. If you click it, now we see that this shows us Mbappe. This shows us the right name. This shows us the right country. Let's do another one. Let's go back. Oh, we can actually use the back button here. So let's hold Control on your computer and click. This will take you to the page you were on earlier. So let's look for another person. Let's look for Ronaldo. See Ronaldo. We see his headshot. Let's right click here and drill through player detail. We can see he's from Portugal. This is his image. This is his name. So let's go back again. Control click. Now we're back to this page. Let's clear this filter and do for any other person. For like this person here, Buffon, let's right click and drill through to player detail. We can see here now that because we don't have his full image, we're going to use the headshot. This is his name, this is his country. So that's how a drill through page works. Okay, now because we don't want, before we continue here, we don't want anybody to just come to this page. We want them to be able to come through the summary page. So I'm going to hide this page. To hide the page, you're going to right click and say hide. And you can see now that it's hidden. When you deploy this to the Power BI service or to the on-prem server, then nobody can get to this page unless they come through a drill through. Okay, so let's keep going here. So we know that this one we just need to format. So next thing, let's format this. So first, let's give it a title. So we know that the title now is going to be nationality because that is nationality. That's the title. And then let's increase the font of the title. Nationality. Let's give the title a background. Background right now is white. Let's make the background to be goldish, gold color. And let's make the font to be let's make the font to be bluish, this color. Yep. And let's make the title to be in the center. And we're going to come back here to the visual. This label, we want to turn it off. We don't want it to say first nationality, so we turn that off here. And then the colored value, which is this Italy right here, which is this Italy, let's make this color to be, let's make the color to be blue. Okay. Alright, let's reduce this height right here. This is fine. This is what we want. Now we're just going to duplicate this like we did. And now let's change this. We want to see the wage. So let's go back here so we can drag it. We already have a measure that would do it. So we can see that it's making this much. So we actually wanted to spell it out all the way. So let's turn this off and say we don't want anything, just show us the actual value. So right now this is showing that this person makes 3,000 euro. Remember, let's change the title of this. Instead of nationality, we now know that this is the wage. So this will say wages, wage. Okay. Next, okay, now that we have the wage, we need to have another one for the net worth. So I'm going to make a copy of this, and then let's look for the value. So just drag that here. So now we can see this we can probably make the width to be bigger. And let's remember to change the title back to, go to general title, and we change this to net worth. Okay, and then for this first page we need another card. So I'm going to do Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V, and this one we want to know the age of the player. So age, not the average age, now we want to see the exact age of the player. So I'm going to drag this here. This person is 44. So let's go to the paintbrush to change this title back to age. So this is the age. So we can shrink this a bit. We know age is usually going to be 2 digits for players, and we can shrink this nationality and bring this here. We can probably shrink the wage a little bit. I'm going to shrink the photo a little bit more. I'm going to bring this up here. I'm going to make this and then shift this here just so we can have more room. I'm going to squeeze this here. I need a little bit more room, so probably going to shrink the nationality. The wages can come right after that. The net worth. Now we have the age. Okay, just shift this a little more. So now we just need to arrange them. Now we can have the picture go a little bit more. Okay. We're going to move this down in a second, but let's create all of our cards now. So the next thing, we need one for the club. So I'm going to copy this and let's look for the club here. Club name, I'm going to drag here, and we know that this we have to increase. And remember to change the title. So the title will be here, and we're just going to call this club. And we also need the position, and since we already have that here, we go back here so we can drag the position here. So we can change the title to club position. And lastly, for this role, we just want to know the penalties for this person. So we search for penalties. So we're going to drag that here, and let's change the title of this. General title, we change this to penalties. The position we know will not be big, so we can shrink it, and then penalties we can also shrink. Okay, now we have the last row. I'm going to make a copy of this. The last row, we need to know the preferred foods. So I'm going to search for preferred and bring it here. I'm going to drag this, and let's remember to change the title here. This will be the preferred foods. And then lastly, we want to know what was the latest award. Latest FIFA award, we're going to search here. Latest award, we're going to drag here. Right now, this person didn't get any award. Let's change this title. When we tested with Messi and Mbappe and the likes, we would see their last award. So this one, this would be the last award. Let's say the last FIFA award. Okay, so now we just need to arrange this, and then we are almost done. So now let's arrange this. Let it come here. I'm just arranging them now, so you can arrange them so they are laid out perfectly, and then I'm going to increase the width for this latest award. Okay, and with penalties you can pin here, club position. I'm going to put spaces in between. I'm going to make this bigger. You can put in more fields as you want here to fill in the spaces, but I'm just going to make that like that. Okay, and we are almost done here. Okay, so now let's click all of this, that way we can group them. I'm going to click all of them. Make sure you hold Control on your computer, and now I'm going to right click and say group. So now everything is grouped. I'm going to select everything, because I want to turn off the background for all of them, and I don't want to do it one by one. So I have everything selected. I'm going to go to my paintbrush, and I'm going to go to General. I'm going to go to Effect and turn off the background. Okay, now I still have everything selected, so I'm going to right click so I can group them. Okay, now that they are grouped, I can now give the background to the group. So I clicked once, I'll go to the paintbrush, I'll go to Effect, the background I can now turn back on. But now the background, I want it to be like gray, a little lighter. Yeah, that gray. And we want this to come down a little bit. Okay, and we just want it to move the picture away from it a little bit. So I'm going to click the group. I'm going to shrink this a little bit. Yes. Now I have to probably just reduce the font of all of them. I'm going to reduce the font. So let's go here, call out value. Let's reduce the font. Okay, let's go a little lower than that. Let's make it 40. Okay, so now we have this. I want this to come out a little bit more. Yes. So now let's go back to this. This is the back button, remember? So let's make it bigger, and let's make this white. So to make it white, let's go to the shape. Let's go to the style. Icon, line color, and we want it to be white. So that will make it white. And we are done. So let's do some more testing. Let me go to the summary, and let's pick another player that we know. Let's pick Ronaldo. See Ronaldo. So now we see Ronaldo. If I right click, I go to Go Through Player Detail. This should take us here. We can see now that the nationality is cut a little bit here. So let's probably reduce the font a little bit more. So I'm going to reduce the font for everything. Let's go here to the paintbrush, call out value. Let's make it go all the way down. Okay, I think 28 looks good. All right, to go back, you just need to hold Control on your computer and click on this right here, and let's clear our filters. And then lastly, let's just refresh the whole report. I'm going to collapse this so we have more room. Let's refresh the whole report to make sure nothing breaks. So let's click refresh. And the time changed. We're good. Remember to save your work.
Thank you so much for watching. If there's any part of this video that you find confusing or you don't really understand and you would like to ask me questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below, and I'll be so happy to answer your questions. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.